It's been an interesting start of 2026. And if you hear sirens, it's because there was a bunch of gunshots, and that's probably where they're going to. So now's the time to listen to that song. Bro, I bawled my eyes out. I mean, we'll all be judged at some point, so it's not me here to judge you or myself. That whole idea of, like, if you saw me, like, would you have clothed me, fed me? Like, how bad are the roads, you know? And turns out they're pretty bad. It's a hot topic issue, and I guess we can just get right into it. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Jordan Whitrock Show. I'm your host, Jordan Whitrock. And today is the first episode of 2026. Let's go. We're back in Savannah. We're going to school. School started in January. And I'm wearing a winter coat and snow hat in Savannah, Georgia. And we just got a snowstorm. It's kind of crazy. But anyway, my apartment has a bunch of holes, like theoretically in between windows and stuff. So literally the cold air just comes straight in. And I have a couple space heaters. Like I have one right next to me just because I'm like, you know, it would be nice to make sure that I don't freeze. But the winter coat coming in clutch. Glad I brought that. I was not going to, but then I did. And so, yeah, that's kind of what's going on right now. But it's funny because I always kind of wanted to see what it was like in Savannah when it snowed a lot, because I was like, well, like, how bad are the roads, you know? And turns out they're pretty bad when it gets cold. I went over to a friend's house the other day or yesterday, like during the snowstorm, because I was like, well, the roads are fine. It's warm enough, right? And that wasn't the issue. Because the thing is, like, Savannah doesn't have salt. Like, Wisconsin has salt because they're used to the snow on the ground. Savannah does not have that. And so because they don't have that, their roads, like, when it freezes, it doesn't really melt. They need the sun to melt it. So I was at nighttime, drove, it was fine. But then leaving, I was like, this is why it's sus driving in Savannah in the winter, because it's not necessarily me I'm worried about, it's all the other drivers. But yeah, no, so that was a journey. Me and my friend, we just followed each other all the way back, going like probably the speed limit or slower. But yeah, no. That's kind of what's going on right now. So we're just braving the storm. It's like one of those like stories that you share now and in the future when you're like, yeah, back in the day, and I had this apartment. I was complaining in the summer it was too hot. Now I'm complaining that it's too cold. But you know, it is what it is. But yeah, no. A lot of stuff happened. Within the time we last had an episode, we had Father Zach, which was awesome. If you haven't checked that out, definitely go check that out. But yeah, no. A lot of good family time over winter break. I'm trying to think. I came back down here like 2 days before New Year's, so I drove back down, which was good. Was able to hang out New Year's Eve with with friends, and yeah. But then I got I don't know what it was called, but I just got really sick. A lot of like, you know, runny nose, congestion, sore throat, cough that wouldn't like stop coughing, like you just couldn't stop. And I was like, this is like, you know, kind of a lot. And then one night I was laying in bed and it felt really bad. I had a headache, everything like that. And I didn't have the chills per se, but I was very uncomfortable. And I was sleeping, and all of a sudden I just like felt getting warmer and warmer. And I was like, I probably have a fever. Like, you know when you have a fever, right? Unless you're trying not to go to school. Anyway, but I was laying in there, and it was like, it was to the point where every single bone in my body like hurt. Like, I'm talking like I couldn't touch like, it's impossible to not touch yourself, right? In the sense of like, my leg is going to touch my leg, or like it literally felt the bones inside my leg didn't want to touch each other. And I'm like, this was so achy and pain, right? And it was the worst night's sleep I had my entire life. I went to bed early because I had a class the next day, and then literally like at 2 a.m. the fever, like I literally felt the fever break, which was like kind of cool because I don't feel like I've never felt that like total sensation of like, whew, like whatever that sick, like my body beat it. Let's go. So that was like definitely the worst night. But then I went to urgent care, and he was like, yeah, he's like, I think you probably have like this like virus that's going around Savannah right now. Here's some like steroids for like the next week, and that should help you. But I think I got through most of it before I even went there. So I don't know how much the steroids helped. I'm sure they helped, but I think I probably should have did that like a day or two earlier, so that I wouldn't have had to go through all of that. But the cough kind of finally went away. But yeah, classes are going good. I think it's fun to like see everyone, because I think you leave winter break. I was talking to someone, and they were like, yeah, it was kind of crazy. Like, we had the fall quarter, and then we went on winter break, and we basically like were as gone for winter break as long as like we knew each other. And I'm like, that's kind of a weird thought, to think that like someone that like you do spend a lot of time with, like you didn't see them for the amount of time that you did see them, like the month before or 2 months before. But yeah, no, so it's good catching up, hanging out. Yeah, and finally got the podcast going again. Oh my gosh, to do the best of, and I'm a little behind shorts. You know that, if you're watching, you know that. And so I had to go through every single episode and find like, in my opinion, like the best moments, or like that community thought based off views or likes, and I was like, oh, this is taking forever, because I wanted to post an episode. I wanted to post this season 1 week earlier, but I was like, there's no way I can get to that. But no, so I'm glad we're finally doing that here. But that's kind of like all the major stuff for the most part. There's a couple other things, but like I think I'm gonna hold that for an episode with a guest, because I think that's the stories will make it 10 times better if I have someone to bounce that off of. But yeah, no, that's kind of like the extreme cold is like the thing that's, I think, affecting everyone the most right now. And the sickness that was going through Savannah, but I think most people are like starting to get over it, which is awesome. But yeah, no. Oh, you know what's crazy? Okay, it's actually not crazy. This is like a kind of serious topic, but I might talk about it in a non-serious topic way. Okay. So like for me, growing up, being who I am, I never thought of myself as like a depressed person. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just don't think like my mind worked in a way that would allow me to be there. And like the way that my life was with like my family, like there really wasn't a way for that to happen. But when I moved back down to Savannah, like when I left like my family, I finally, the song, John Mayer, not Last Train Home, but it's something related to Stop This Train. There we go. Stop This Train by John Mayer. If you don't know that song, listen to the song. But basically what it is he's saying like, stop this train, like time's moving too fast. I want to go back home, to all it is. Like people are getting too old, like meaning his parents. And the ending phrase of it is, as I'm driving away in the night, like after he leaves his parents, saying, stop this train, I want to get off and go home again. And it was funny because like, like that for me definitely affects me every time I listen to it. But I never really had a true experience of like leaving home, because even when I moved down to Savannah, my parents came with me, right? To like get me settled. So this was like when I was packing up my car, I was like, this is the first time like I'm leaving home, going far away, where like I can't just like turn and hang out, in 30 minutes away or something. And so I was listening. I was like, okay, now's the time to listen to that song. Bro, I bawled my eyes out like insane. But it was good, because it's healthy to cry, which is what I'm learning, because I think for the longest time I just like didn't cry. But now I'm like, I feel like you have to, especially as an actor, and I'm learning how to like get in touch with my emotions, because it's like, well, how could you do that in a film or understand like what a character is going through if you don't even experience that yourself, or even know like what would it take to feel that way, like on a basic human emotion like that. But it was that, so like now that song can hit 10 times harder because I have that experience of crying as I'm driving away. No, but I just think it's crazy because like then getting sick and other stuff that was going on, like while I was down in Savannah, feeling isolated, I was like, damn, this just like sucks, like part of me going down here was because I had like a plan, right? And God always tells us, you know, you can have a plan, but it probably will change. And it's changed obviously, and so I think that's like tough because I want it my way, but you can't. We're not all Frank Sinatra, and so I think for me that was the challenging part, and so I think I actually kind of felt like slightly depressed, even though like my siblings visited me, like, which I think was good, but I think it was just like trying to get back into routine, but realizing like, oh, I don't really want to do this. Like, instead of being in class, I'd rather do podcasts or live stream or do like community things, you know. I keep building on that momentum I was having. I think it's just like tough because my mind wants to do something different, but like my future is saying like, hey, you need to get this degree, you know. And so I think there was a lot of like push internal fighting, along with like some external stuff. But yeah, it was crazy because I just felt like massively depressed, which I think I've only felt like maybe one other time in my life. And it was funny because a friend reached out and she was like, hey, would you want to pray with me? And I was like, sure. You know, it wouldn't be someone that I necessarily would have like thought in that way of like, like going to church would be normal, if that makes sense. But like going to pray, I was like, sure. And then I was like, what would I pray? And I was like, rosary, duh, you know. So we get into the cathedral's chapel, and we start saying the rosary. And it's funny because I that was like when I was starting to be able to process it more. And I was like, you know what? Like, I need this, right? And in praying with someone or two people like with you, I think it just builds a more of a community in prayer than just like yourself, which I think is important. And so that rosary actually was very helpful to me and like helping me start chip away at like, why are you depressed? Like, are you just like self-loathing, you know, and not being or doing what you're supposed to, and you know that, right? Like choosing to be pity is kind of like how I felt, was like, damn, like I feel like I'm choosing to be sad a little bit, you know. And I think that really helped me to like get out of whatever funk I was in. So yeah, it's been an interesting start of 2026. If you told me this is how 2026 was gonna start, I think I'd probably be like, okay, yeah, right, all right, cool. But I also think that like leads to like you having life experience, right? If like someone talks to me, like I can now say like, oh, I know what that feels like because I went through that. And I think that's very important to be able to connect to other people, and be able to open up and share and have different conversations with one another. But yeah, no, definitely, yeah. We'll leave it at that. But actually, what's kind of crazy is like when I was thinking about like what I wanted this episode to be about, I didn't necessarily have an idea. It was more of like, hey, like, obviously want to talk about a little bit like what was going on with me at the beginning, see if that was, didn't want this episode to be super long. I don't think it has to be. Wanted to say, hey, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. We'll be posting again starting right now. But there's a hot topic going on right now. And kind of like within stuff that I've been doing and being a part of, like learning more about it. I just wanted to share like my thoughts, you know, kind of like do like, just be like, hey, this is kind of like what I'm thinking about. And if you wanted to comment down below and be like, yeah, I agree. Or like, hey, like, have you thought about it this way? And whatnot. Cause I don't know. I just thought it was interesting. And it's a hot topic issue. And I guess we can just get right into it. Like I think the whole right now is a big deal is ICE and, immigration and illegal status and legal status and what are the different like versions of that and truths and lies being shared to the public, meaning like us. And I don't know, I think for me I never really had like an opinion on it because I'm from Wisconsin, and like, so yes, we have immigrants coming in, but in my brain, it's like, oh, if they would have went to Wisconsin, like who would choose to go to Wisconsin, right? Like I'm assuming that's got to be like in a Salem or, someone who has been, legal or is legal is coming. And I'm sure they're not all that. But that's like something Texas's issue or Arizona or like someone that's connected to like a border like that. But it was interesting because I don't think I've really had a stance on it or just like thought about like, oh, what's my opinion on this? I think I just listened to a lot of other people and obviously there's like people that are, in the streets protesting saying like, hey, like we're ripping apart families and whatnot. Like, why are we doing this? You told us you were going to arrest these people, but you're arresting these people. This doesn't make sense to us. And then you have the other people that are like, hey, like these people are, being disruptive or not are freeloading because they maybe don't understand how our system is set up, and so they're assuming that this is happening. And it's like, if it was happening, I totally agree, but I don't know if it is. So it might be false information, and anyway, but I went to, on a Wednesday night a couple weeks ago, I went to a talk back with a priest, and he kind of specializes in immigration. I don't know why I said kind of. He specializes in immigration in the Savannah area. And it was interesting because he kind of talked about like, well, here's my story, and his story was he was from Peru, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. But he's from Peru, and his family immigrated to Georgia, or North Carolina or South Carolina, one of the two. But that's because they had like gangs were like gonna kill his father. And they were able to come over because his father invested. I think at the time the minimum was like $250,000 invested into the U.S. So that then they could all get their citizenship, which is crazy because now but then he literally followed up saying like, yeah, and so we got lucky because it was only that amount of money, but today it's $750,000 in order to get just like your citizenship. Like if you wanted to buy, kind of like buy your way in, which is crazy because I don't know if you're coming from a poorer country, I don't know how you would ever come up with that money unless you are like one of the wealthiest people, from that country. So that was kind of crazy. I didn't know that. But then proceeded to go on to say like how like with Reagan, back in the day, like people from Mexico or Central America would come through and work for farmers, and then after the crop or the trimming and all that was done, they'd go back home, and it would have made higher wages, but then came back to like Mexico or Central America, and how that was like something that was just normal back and forth every year. But then Reagan was like, hey, like what we're thinking of doing is like, maybe giving you guys some citizenship. But with that, we're going to start, militarizing the border, making sure not everyone can come in to just come in. And in doing so, what that did was people would come up to work and they'd be like, well, if I go back home, there's a good chance I might not make it through to work in America again. So then what you get is people maybe coming to work and then just staying, which then leads you to like the main like ways that you have illegal immigrants, right? So you have the people that are coming across the border, but I think a lot of times the news make a bigger deal about that, where it's not maybe as many. But a lot like maybe if it's like a 60-40 to this, but a lot of it is work visa related, where people have a work visa, come over here, or they have a visa for something else, or like a student visa, and either they get fired or they graduate, or it just expires, and they just don't leave. So they were legal, but now they're not, and they just stay in America. And so what happens is a lot of times that's how we get a lot of, illegal immigrants from that standpoint. And mind you, I'm saying this, but like if I was in their position, right, I totally would try to I would try to come to America. I think we do pride ourselves. Like I don't understand people that like shit on America. Like, it is the land of opportunity, whether you agree or disagree. I think maybe people are like, yeah, but like you get a lot of money if you either become a big CEO or like, become popular on like a streaming platform or content creator, or Instagram or something like that. But I would argue like back then, the only way that you could become wealthy was like if you started your own company or business. So I think the idea is that the business has changed to what gives you like a fair opportunity to become, wealthy, successful, all that. But going back to the conversation, those two are like the main proponents to why we have a lot of maybe illegal immigrants here. But a lot of them do want to actually work, right? And I think like in the news we hear like, oh, like they're all criminals and they don't want, like they're trying to kill us, bring drugs in and guns. Like the whole thing is like they bring us drugs and we sell them guns, right? Like that's what gets through the border, And the issue is, a lot of people say, well, like why wouldn't they come in through the legal way, the legal method, right? We have that set up. Well, the thing is we really don't have that set up. There isn't really a good way for people that are maybe not the wealthiest, that are in lower status, lower priority, whatever you want to call it, that they just like wouldn't have the ability to come to America, or if they got on the list, by the time their name was up, they'd be dead because they waited so long. And so we're in this mode right now where it's like, oh, we gotta get all the illegal immigrants out of the country, which I think has a fairness to it, from the standpoint of like, I do believe culture of America, if you invite, if too many people come in from a specific culture, they're not going to, what's the word I'm looking for? They're not going to become like cohesive to the culture of America. They're going to stay with their culture because they have enough people from where they're from, so they don't feel like they have to become a full American, if that makes sense. And I don't know, I'm probably maybe not explaining this in the best way that makes sense, but like, there's things that we do in America that make people Americans. And like, if you had a bunch of people from China, kind of like like Chinatown or whatever that equivalent would be, it's like if they stayed there, they don't feel like they need to go interact with this. And that's how you get like groups of people in areas. And if we do that, there's not going to be as much sharing or connecting between groups. And I honestly would think that would create more segregation in a way, like not hardcore segregation, but just of like, oh yeah, we don't really talk to those people, and so I think there is a little bit of like, well, we don't want to have too many people at one time because we want to be able to bring these people in and integrate them with like what it is to be American and all that kind of stuff. And so I think that's like what the goal is. And so I think that's like, that could be one worry as to why we're like, oh, maybe we don't want as many people in at a time. But at the same time, we don't really have a lot of great systems that like can get people in fast, right? Or just like, like the Ellis Island idea, that's like a fantasy from the past. Obviously, I think it does need to be a little bit of, little bit of like, I don't think we can let everyone in, but at the same time, I don't think we should like shut it down completely, Anyway, so it was interesting because then through the conversation, the discussion, or not discussion, but the talk back, learning like a Catholic view of that, and like what do Catholics believe about immigration, and how does that, affect who you are and what you should believe in and your personal values and all that kind of stuff. And so I think that was interesting because what he said is like, I mean, the Catholic Church is full of misfits, people that don't belong, people that do drugs, are addicted to pornography or stuff like that. Like, we aren't perfect people, right? And that's the whole thing, is that we're all broken in some way, and that's why we strive to become closer to Christ. And in doing that, like, there's people that are illegal immigrants that are coming here that go to church, right? And so it's that whole idea of like, Catholics believe that like, every human should have dignity. Like, we shouldn't be going around in ICE raids and ripping people off the streets, But at the same time, we do respect the idea that countries have borders, and you should, believe in the borders, but there also should be a way to get in and out, in a legal way that doesn't create, favoritism towards one person or the other. Anyway, I thought that was interesting, because we're all made in the image likeness of God, and if you don't have that kind of idea on it, like, I mean, we'll all be judged at some point, so it's not me here to judge you or myself. I think that's just like something to think about, that whole idea of like, if you saw me, like, would you have clothed me, fed me, It's like all those things where it's like we're pushing these people out, without any say, which is kind of sad as a country. But um yeah, I don't know. And I think a lot of times, like through news outlets, it's always like, yeah, like we're collecting all the criminals off the street, we're getting rid of them, sending them back to Venezuela or something crazy like that. And like when you listen to it, you're like, that's good, less criminals. That's always good. But he shared it in a way where he's like, so like a lot, like for us, Savannah, like one of the big things was like the Hyundai immigration when they came in and took a bunch of people out. I don't know if it was like 200, 400 people. But he shared that they only had 4 people's names on the list of like people to grab or to take into custody. And they came out with like 200, 400. And he was like, yeah, he's like, I'm not sure how that is legal in that sense. And now a law just recently passed that they don't need any paperwork or anything. They can just take anyone off the street and pull it. And he was saying how like, he's like, okay, if you're taking all the criminals, awesome, cool. But why are we then posting up in job locations or posting up from destination A to B, from house to work, and trying to pull people over, that sound different or look different, and just assuming that they're probably legal? Like, I don't know how that works. And so that for me, I think was very like eye opening in the understanding of like, maybe it is, not what it should be, right? That's not what we're being told, and we should probably be aware of that, or just like think of it from another perspective. And so like that was very helpful for me to be like, yeah, like that is kind of messed up that we are just going into places of work of people like, yes, they're illegal. Have they broke a rule? Yes. But they're actually at work. Like, it's not the criminals that we're saying, But anyway, so that was like some of my thoughts on it from that standpoint. So I think kind of what it comes down to is like, hey, government, is there any way that we could like try to figure out a way to make this legal for people to come in? Because I think once we figure that out and actually have a true system that works, that would solve a lot of issues. And, is there a way that we can find people or screen people that are here maybe illegally and be like, hey, like, what have you done since you've been here? Have you been a productive person in society? Yes. You go to work? Yes. You have kids? Yes. Like, do you pay taxes or whatever that is? I don't even know if they pay taxes. I don't know how that works, because what he was saying is like, like a lot of people are like, yeah, all the immigrants are like freeloading on all of these like state programs, government programs, and he's like, if they're illegal, they're not in the system, which means they don't benefit from any of those, I mean, they would love to. If you asked any of them, they would love to be a part of those systems, but they can't because they're illegal. And if they did try to get those government programs, they would out themselves as being illegal. And so that was just like interesting. Like how maybe that doesn't all, and I'm sure there's ways that people have figured out to get in, whether that's using like a dead person's name or social security number or something like that. But I feel like the majority of people would not do that, or have the time or care to spend to do that. And a lot of times he was saying is like people in his parish who have maybe been tagged, like they even tell him like, hey, like, like, I don't know. It's that whole idea of like you live your life in fear because you don't know when you're just going to be picked up on the side of the street. Like you just get chosen or because of the way you look or sound. And how the whole thing is like you need to have an attorney of something. I forget what the term is, but it's someone to like has all of like access to all of your stuff, right? Because then you can sell your house, sell your car, and bring that money back home, and then that money should then allow you to buy. So it's like that whole idea of like they know they probably won't be able to stay here their whole life. They hope, but if not, they hope they made enough money through the opportunities that America offers, so that when they get forced to go back home, they can use that money. Power of attorney? No, that's not what it is. I don't know. I give up. But that they can use that money then to, build a house or like start a business in their home country. But yeah, no, I think it was just, for me, it was a lot of good conversation, eye-opening, just being open to new ideas, and just learning. I think that's like, honestly, that was like the main thing, was like me just learning more about immigration. Because I think that's like definitely one part that I'm like, I think it's easy to say something doesn't affect you, right? Because I was born in America, I'm a citizen. So like the idea of illegal immigration. It's like, okay, first off, like I don't have a phone number. I can't call President Trump and give him my 2 cents, right? I'm not an owner or CEO of a Fortune 500 company. I don't have his phone number, right? So it's like anything I say really doesn't change the idea. So then if that's not what's going to happen, then it's like, do I bother, learning about it? And in going to that discussion board talk back, it was just like, oh no, like I maybe like things that I thought are, I don't know, because I don't know if I never really thought that it was like a bad thing. I think it's tough because like in my head I always picture it as like you're ripping a family apart, and we talk about in this country how like divorce rates or single parent homes are so high, and it's like, damn, like we're just adding to that, right? We maybe we say like, oh yeah, like our schools are crazy because of this. It's like, well, what do you think is gonna happen to all these kids that like lose a parent, because they get deported back to their home country, I don't know. I think it's very challenging. I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer right now to that, because if we say it's fine if you're already in the country, that doesn't solve the issue of people coming to the country illegally, right? But yeah, no, I think it's a fascinating conversation, kind of a topic to think about. But yeah, no, I think that's just like been something on my heart, after that talk back, to be like, not necessarily like what do I believe, but yeah, is everything that's being shown to me believable on both sides, right? Like, is it, I don't know, like, is there a way to stop drugs? But then people would be like, well, why would, like, the U.S. government wouldn't want to be involved with the cartel? And it's like, damn, but, I don't know, kind of a crazy world. And I'm just in Savannah, Georgia, freezing my tail off from all the holes in my apartment, recording a podcast episode. But I don't know. If you have any thoughts on this in a constructive manner, and want to type something in the comments or whatnot, I'd love to hear it. Like maybe your life experience or something related to that. I think it's just cool to learn from each other, and I think that's what being online allows you to do. Is to have these open conversations with one another. But yeah. No, I'm trying to think. I think there was like one other thing I wanted to talk about, but I literally can't think about it now. We're learning about the Miser method in my acting class, which is all about repetition. So the whole idea is like, if say you're across from me, I'd be like, your shirt is blue, and then, or no, I would say I like your shirt, and you would say you like my shirt, and I say I like your shirt, you like my shirt, I like your shirt, you like my shirt, I like your shirt, you like my shirt, and then like when you feel that urge to change it, you'd be like, yes, I like your shirt, and then they would yes, you like my shirt. Anyway, the whole idea though is that you lose the concept of dialogue, and you are only on your partner. You use your partner to gauge like the emotion, the attack, all that kind of stuff. Which allows you to become like one with the scene, and then like you just memorize your dialogue in rote, which means monotone. So you'd be like, hello, my name is Jordan Whitrock and I am yellow. I don't know, why did I say yellow? I don't know. Anyway, but I think that's a fascinating method. And I love my professor for the class too, so that's also a bonus. But I'm enjoying that class. Just doing some more voice work, learning how to speak correctly. Maybe I'll get a good British accent one day when we work on that in class. And I'm in a dance class, which has been kind of wild because like I liked dancing growing up, but not like actual dancing. It's not I'm learning how to dance, but I think it's good. I'm excited for what this year has to bring. There's a lot of like upcoming opportunities, but then also at the same time, like I don't know, my issue right now is it's definitely financial, right? Because I'm in school, so it's like, oh, I'd love to do something creative over the summer, but I probably should afford school, so that's kind of like where my mind is right now, trying to figure out what that looks like for me and if anything is feasible. But yeah, that's kind of it for myself from that standpoint. So thanks for listening. If you thought this conversation was constructive in any capacity, drop a like, subscribe to the channel. We're embarking on season 2 of the Jordan Whitrock Show, so hopefully we'll get some awesome guests and continue to grow. And I appreciate you being a part of this community. And we'll see you next week. Peace.